Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at SoberCoffeePod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
So the coffee shop sounds so quaint and cute, you know.
Totally.
And we just ripped it apart before this episode. we just tore it down. It
We
was
should
crazy.
actually do behind the scenes.
I know there was video where it was yeah. So we broadcast out of Audio Hive, great place
Love
just
it.
out of
Chicagoland.
Joliet, Chicagoland area, and but we're not constrained to listeners just in Joliet. We've got listeners everywhere.
Bangladesh
Big in
continues
Bangladesh.
to be a very
Yes.
strong puller for us.
That's right. And
We're
how
big.
how do you say Merry Christmas in Bangladesh?
I'm not sure. We just say Merry Christmas and it works.
All right, very good.
I'm not sure how that works, but
So yeah, we broke down the tables. We kind of scooted a table aside here together with us, and we've got a table for four this morning. I'd love to
I
jump
love
right
it.
in.
morning, ladies.
Morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Oh,
Yeah,
look at
the mics
that.
works
They're
great.
like the double mint gum twins.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that.
Mike, I think you're aging yourself there a little bit.
Yeah, I know, just a little bit. But welcome to the coffee shop again, Erin. It was so great having you in last week. I cannot believe how fast it went by. It was like, I looked down, I'm like, half hour already? How did that happen?
Absolutely, I could go on.
Yeah, well, we're hoping you do. And this week you've got, you referenced, we both referenced our friend last week, Elizabeth, and
Yes.
she happened to be strolling by the coffee shop today and came in for a cup of coffee and a little confidence.
It's like magic.
Yeah, saw my people, had to come by.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, I want to kind of jump right back in and talk sobriety with you a little bit. And a couple things you really defined me last week when you talk about this emotional stuffing, right? And I thought to myself, I did that a lot when I was out there. I stuffed entirely. Now I stuff a little bit, and I have to watch myself that I'm stuffing things in. It doesn't mean that it's not. Sometimes it's appropriate to like kind of stuff a little bit.
Absolutely.
But at some point, you got to process this stuff so that it doesn't come back and be a resentment that brings you back out to drinking or drugging. And so your coping mechanism to stuffing before and to feeling those pains was drink or drug. What's your go-to, your quick go-to now when you feel something, you feel like you're gaining weight on a resentment, a fear, an anger, something. What's your go-to? How do you, because you got to process it in a healthy way. What's your go-to
I
coping?
do. Well, you know what the funny thing is that now, being sober and clear-headed and sharp, when those things happen, you know, my body can sense that awkwardness, that something needs to happen. So, you know, either I reach out to a friend and talk about it, I go to a meeting, I go and buy plants that are half dead and bring them back to life. I am a huge plant flower lady, you know, and it's crazy because I you know, those things where they didn't work for us in our lives, and when things happened, we would just drop everything, go and get a drink.
Yeah.
I still do that same behavior, not that I want to drink, but that instant gratification.
Yeah, right.
But I'll try to do something that is a positive. Like I remember when it first happened, I had whatever, I don't remember what it was maybe a year or two ago, and I was upset and I kind of lost my shit or whatever, and I was like, I'm going to go to Elizabeth Nursery and buy a big plant and trim it, and that made me feel better. I wasn't going to the liquor store,
Right.
and I wasn't thinking about drinking,
Right.
but that is still the same pattern that I did. You know?
Sure.
You know,
That great coping mechanism, and I love the analogy of the plant that needs loving and care,
Yeah.
and it doesn't bounce back in a day. Often these little
Takes
fragile
time.
plants, they don't bounce back in a day. But if you nurture them and take care of them over a while, and I love that we've been brought back. We were dead plants that got brought back.
absolutely.
you know?
And that's I
It's
didn't even
amazing.
think about that, but yeah, my whole house, you walk in and you'd think that you're in like a a plant store, or my
That's
nieces
awesome.
are like, oh gosh, we have to water Auntie Erin's plants on the inside. She's got like 9 million.
You're not growing
And
weed
I'm
there,
like,
are you?
No.
Okay, just check. What, Elizabeth? I'm just checking.
It's a beautiful jungle in there. But
It's a beautiful jungle, no weed.
a healthy outlet.
Okay,
yes.
very good.
love it. I
Very
love
good.
Legal outlets.
Elizabeth, talk a little bit about Erin now that you're in the room.
Sisters.
Yes, sisters. Talk
Yeah.
about your sister and tell me Tell me kind of how you two got connected, because you didn't know each other pre-sobriety, right?
No, we didn't. We met at an AA meeting, the 330s. When I first got sober, like Erin, was going to a lot of different meetings, multiple a day, and I gravitated towards Erin pretty instantly. She was vocal and honest. And it's been a great evolution. I could go on and on about the things that we've changed, that I've seen, which is great. You know, being close to someone and finding like a true friend, a sister in sobriety, and able to witness. Erin came in about 5-6 months before I did, so I had somebody there that kind of already knew the misconceptions of AA that I had. You know, so finding somebody early on, like I did with Erin, we have a few other friends that we all kind of started around the same time, and we really held on to each other. We started doing, like Erin was talking about, the healthy, sober activities together. You know, that connection.
That's important to you, isn't it?
It is.
Because for me anyway, it was important once I took down the wall of, okay, I do this over here to stay sober. Oh, but now I do this to be social, right? And when that wall comes down and you're doing the social things with the sober people, it just changes your outlook on it.
It does, because that wall made me feel isolated and unique, and that I had to have things more in common with people than you really do.
Right.
You know, you talk about it, the human aspect of it, men and women mixing, different ages, different genders, different lifestyles.
Right.
And, you know, Erin and I, we work together now, but that was in this last year. And prior to that, you know, Erin's a beautiful artist. And eclectic, and the core base, though, I'm a terrible artist. My handwriting is like a serial killer. I can't even.
Sure.
You have nice handwriting.
Yeah. See what friends do? They lie for you.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there thinking, what? I've never seen a serial killer's real handwriting. I'm
Supposedly
now I'm
cut out.
curious.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Mine is beautiful.
I'll write you something later. You can see it for the first time.
Right.
And but there was so many things about Erin and our group, you know, her heart, her compassion. We talked early on, these group settings, these open houses. Erin hosts a lot at her home. My sponsor did as well, getting people together.
You do as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that was like a foundation, you know, seeing, you know, how Erin treated others.
Right.
Her care for people, you know, wanting the best for others, and making that happen, reaching out to the new person. When a new person comes in, you know, we can all be shy or unto ourselves. You know, it's just human nature. But reaching out to the newcomer is instilled in all of us, you know, in AA, and carrying the message throughout and continuous work. So seeing that in somebody else, you know, even though we come from different backgrounds, none of that mattered anymore.
No, it doesn't
and that
matter.
used to define my friendship
Sure,
before,
right.
you know, along with booze and drugs, you know.
Right.
So.
Let's talk about art for a second. Tell me about how art plays, your artistry, how it plays into your recovery.
You know what? It's funny because I don't do much anymore with it since I've been sober. I did it for so long, and I think for me, because I was naturally good at it at a very young, and my sister's very artistic. It runs in my family. My dad does stained glass and woodwork. My mom does ceramics and gardening and all that. But I think for me, that was an outlet that I stayed with for such a long time out of fear, because I was too afraid to venture off into different directions. It just came natural. So, you know, I went to art school. I did art history stuff. And, you know, and I also had a lot of learning disabilities growing up. So I generally gravitated towards things that were hands-on, you know, in front of me. I am dyslexic. I had a hard time reading and comprehension. So I needed to have something that was in front of me all the time. And I think that just stuck with me for a very long time. But when I got sober, and, you know, I taught for a very long time, you know, now I'm in a completely different field, working with Elizabeth. Yeah. And, you know, it's, you know, taxes, and I do bookkeeping and payroll and loans.
It's a lot different than art.
Yeah, for like 36 companies.
Could you take my annual
Different size of the
financial
brain.
analysis and make a picture out of it? Right.
But the thing is, it's so crazy. Once the mind is sharp and clear and we're alert, the things that we're not afraid to absorb and to try. And I did it, and I enjoy it, and I love it. And my father's so funny; he's the math guy, and he was like, "I knew I was in there somewhere, Erin."
That's awesome, honey.
But yeah, I mean, it just that flip, and obviously, art will always be a part of my life. But you know what? The thing to do it, for other people, it loses its lust, and I just want to do it for family and things of that sort. But yeah, just trying something different, not being afraid. It's challenging, and I love it, and I'm not afraid of it. So
Good.
No, that's awesome. So let me go back to being sisters, right? And I know you have a number of other sisters, right? That I think I've heard referred to as the girl gang, right?
Right.
So Mikey and I are part of a guys group on Monday nights, right? There's about 23.
You thinking of doing an event together?
Yeah, there's 20. No.
no.
That's mixed in church and
Did you hear
state.
that?
Hard no.
No, but so what I've heard so far when you describe and what I know about the girl gang, right? A lot of fun. There's a lot of activities. There's a lot of positive support, right? And you're connected, right? Which builds a good foundation. Do you guys give each other permission and an openness and an honestness to really challenge each other and call each other out, if and when you see bullshit?
Well, I will say, I've touched on that before. Something that with the women is, it's not so much call us out on, our BS or things like that, but that support of, not being able to hide from our emotions, or when things are going on in our life that are tough to talk about, or things with our families, significant others, not only just having that base, but to be able to talk to about and break it down, but to have someone tell us, no, that's not normal, or that isn't what you deserve. That's a huge part of it.
I love it.
Yep.
Or what if you look at it from this way? We were just talking recently with our friend Jackie, and she'll say, well, do you want my opinion? Because that is, okay, I'm going to...
That's a great question.
I'm going to, and before, a lot of us...
Would dispute it.
Yeah, just throw it out, whether people wanted it or not. And, to have that opportunity, that opens the door to, do you want me to give you my honest opinion, what I think is best for you, because I love you, I'm here for you, but maybe you can see it from this angle. If I say it this way, that you couldn't see it from the same angle because you're so deep in it. And I think that's a really a big part of sobriety, is having someone who cares about you deeply, who's been through hell, came in desperate for a new life, who whether it's drugs or alcohol, because to me they're one and the same, had that pain and desperation to say to you, well, I love you so much, but this blind spot here, whether it be a relationship or a feeling, maybe you can look at it this way and this will help. Before, I told people what they wanted to hear, regardless, family, friends, loved one. I just wanted to be liked.
Should I go further on the cliff? Yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
go
you
for
should.
it.
You
Sounds
should.
like a
This is a
great
great
idea.
spot.
Sure. What jumps out at me is that the basis of the relationship in our group, our men's group that Glenn and I belong to, and your girl gang that you belong to, the foundation for me anyway, the beauty of it is the foundation is centered on our sobriety, right? So,
Yes.
so like Glenn, I'll get on the phone with Glenn. We do our check-ins a couple times a week or whatever, and he'll go off on he's doing this and he's doing that and details here, and I'll listen to him. And then what will I say? How's your sobriety?
Right.
Well, of course it's all right, Mikey. Okay, I'm the guy that's got to ask, because as long as you're good in your sobriety with all this stress, energy, and disappointment that you're navigating through, are you okay with your sobriety? That's my motivation. So, check your motives, right? My motives with Glenn are pure and simple. I just want him to continue to live a sober life, because I know it gives him his best chance. And so my prayers for Glenn, my support, my actions for Glenn are always based on that. Now, occasionally, in conversation, I might be able to give him advice, but I love that. Do you want my advice or you don't, Glenn? Well,
what we always say, it's hard to read the label on your own jar, right?
Right.
Or Elizabeth, you said, sometimes you're so thick into it.
Right.
Right. But it takes the world's not built like that. The world's not
No.
built for open feedback.
No. There's always a motive.
Especially now.
Yeah,
Right,
there's always
or
a motive.
right. Everybody's trying to knock
Right.
each other, or right. So, but it always comes from. In fact, one of the things we did a couple of years ago, it was amazing. We had 15 guys around a fireplace, right? And here was the exercise, and it was kind of the first time we really did this. Like let's just say, Erin, it was your turn. You would sit there and listen. You couldn't respond to anybody. We went around the circle, and if it was your turn, everybody in the circle of 15 would say, one or two things that they loved about you, real positive, and one or two things, constructive criticism, and you couldn't respond, right? And you just had to take it in. And it was one of the biggest, and after that, we gave each other permission, hey, because there were some cool things that were brought out, right? But it was brought out from a positive perspective of love, and hey, I care for you. I'm not trying to put you down. I'm just showing you what I see from my bleacher seat, right? And so it's really cool to have a landscape or an environment to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty cool as well that you open your house because I think there's nowhere that you're more vulnerable than in your own settings, right? I think
so. Now I know that Erin, who's having all these
that's right.
get-togethers.
It's Erin. It's at Erin's, and she's got a great house for a great backyard. But it opens up. I don't know. It just it extends a real nurturing, legitimate. She cares about the community.
I definitely do, and I volunteer at the Silver Oaks, and
right.
And a lot of the IOP patients in my groups I've invited them, and actually I sponsor a girl from one of the IOP groups that I work with. But I just wanted to say real quick, back to like bouncing stuff off of each other as friends. Once you get that support group and like I have the connection with Elizabeth and Jackie and the girls and everything, it almost gets to a point where there is no bullshitting each other.
Yeah,
because,
right.
You know what I mean? That
Because
I don't have to.
That's
like
right.
It's real.
That I don't really have
Right.
to, or that I know if I feel off, I can go to any of my girls and be like, you know what, I'm feeling off. Do you guys think, like I feel it first, and then I can go, which to me is like, wow, that's amazing that I'm feeling this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm accepting it. I bounce stuff off my girls. But having that no bullshit friendship, that is, that nothing has to be. There has no lies. Everything's out on the table.
That's
and,
great.
It is such a freeing and just such a wonderful thing. So
That is odd. That is
no
awesome.
shame.
What a gift.
yeah, no shame, no nothing.
I didn't have any of those kind of relationships when I was out there. They were so based on whatever my motive was, whatever their motive was. I knew exactly going into a relationship with another guy, another gal, whatever it was, that what their motives were or what my motives were. And usually I was the one with the bad motives, right? I wanted, to use them to gain what I wanted to ultimately have, It's terrible. And it just doesn't work that way in AA. If you're legitimate, honest, and legitimate.
Yeah, same. I definitely, that reminds me of drinking and using. When I think about the relationships and how I treated them, I hid myself from everybody else, and I also didn't treat others, the way they deserve to be treated when it comes to honesty and them feeling safe, never knowing how I would react. That makes me feel, when I think about how I used to treat myself, it reminds me of how I feel about drinking.
Right.
That kind of icky feeling.
Icky. Yeah.
that awkward feeling. Which
Yeah.
is great. It's a great feeling now to feel awkward in there, because I know if I feel uncomfortable or awkward, I know that I need to readjust something.
Right. Something's gone wrong.
Bounce something off a girl, or just
Right,
recognize
right.
it instead of just kind of being like, "Look, have a cocktail, all gone," and then I'll go have a rage attack later.
Erin, what if your girls aren't available? What's your go-to?
Oh, reading.
Reading. Okay.
Reading outside, if we can go outside.
Just getting outside.
Going to a coffee shop. I have a really good one in Frankfurt I go to.
Is that the ghost one? No, I just heard about that.
I went to Ghost for the first time. It's amazing. But no,
Okay.
I go to the Watershed Cafe
Okay.
and Books in
And
Frankfurt.
just kind of have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, or go, my sisters. Obviously they're.
Yeah, that's great.
My family,
great to
we're
have
as
them.
tight as ever. We're all finally in sync with all of the
That's
alcoholics
awesome.
in our family.
That's
That's
so,
awesome. Y'all share chips back and forth.
yeah. Oh yeah.
No, that's great.
So what do you tell the sober listener, the sober curious? First of all, what do you tell them about embracing, a road to recovery in their own personal life, what advice can you give the newcomer who's just walking in first, second time listening?
Well, first, I would go over and give them a huge hug and tell them they're in the right place. And to just come in, no pressure, listen, be present. I know some people, when they come in, they get bombarded with, step, sponsor, boom, 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 boom. We already are coming in with that anxiety and that anxiousness. And, coming in and having kind of like a no pressure, relaxing kind of thing, for me anyways, that's what I would do. It's, introduce them, help them, figure out their support system, introduce them to other people, have them over if I have, parties, because I want them. Those parties are also for new people and for other people who maybe don't go out that much to come in. And I really want, because I know how much I love my support system and all the friends that I have made here. And I want that for so many people. So, just to make them comfortable, no pressure, and to make them laugh, to make them laugh. Humor is a huge part of my personality. Now I can use it in the right way instead of masking pain, and being sarcastic. I am sarcastic. I have a sharp Irish tongue.
I do too.
But
it caused me a lot of troubles.
Yes. So.
And by the way, on our website, we do have a meeting finder. So if somebody's looking for a meeting, you can pretty much, and wherever you are geographically, you can find a meeting. So go check that out. Elizabeth, what would you tell the newcomer who's listening now?
That it's possible. That you will get a whole new life if you try. Coming in, getting numbers. Erin touched on it. Being connected.
Getting connected. Yeah.
But for me personally, I know Erin feels this way as well. She's a great sponsor. Hillary, I know you guys have sponsors. Yeah. Sponsors have sponsors.
Right.
Get a sponsor, even if it's a temporary sponsor. Someone who can start to talk to you about working the steps, because I personally believe that's the spiritual toolkit. The connection, meetings, it is huge. But an alcoholic working with another alcoholic, and like I said earlier, synonymous to an addict is an alcoholic, in my opinion, is key. And once you start working the steps and have a spiritual awakening, I think your future, the possibilities are endless. You'll be able to help others once you can help yourself, once you can stand on your own 2 feet. And in my opinion, for an alcoholic, alcohol is a poison, and once you can start to see it that way and get through the shame and guilt, forgive yourself, you'll have moments. You'll have plenty of moments. Relapse isn't a part of my story or Erin's, but it is a part of a lot of people's story, and you have to keep coming back. Don't give up on yourself. And once you have that spiritual awakening, and the obsession is lifted for me today, just today, I'm able to get up in the morning without that remorse and shame and guilt, and put one foot in front of the other. My mom always said that: put one foot in front of the other.
That's right.
You keep moving.
It's not that complicated.
No, and then you open the door to helping others, and there's something to be said about the beauty of an alcoholic working with another alcoholic.
It's special, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Glenn, last word?
No, I was just thinking that's one of the things I like about the AA program, where it breaks it down to one day at a time, because I remember early on there were so many lists and things I had to deal with, and so and you just break it down to today. Yeah. And it just simplifies it. It helps that mental, weight, that we land up carrying. It's great.
I just want to say this really quick, a funny thing. So when I talked about mental weight loss in a meeting about a year ago, a friend of ours, Barry, who was in the program, who was listening to me when I said this. So I said, I feel like I lost 100 pounds, of mental weight. And after the meeting, he comes up to me, he goes, gosh, he's like, you lost 100 pounds? You look great.
Oh, that's funny.
Listening is a good tool, right?
Well, thank you. Yes. Well, thank
Listening
you. But
is a key tool.
Mental weight loss.
Right.
That's awesome.
Ladies, it's been so special having you. We got to do
I love
this.
having you, ladies.
Absolutely got to do this again.
Yes.
Love
This is
the girl
amazing,
gang.
amazing,
Thank you
amazing.
Thank you so much.
One day at a time.
One
Yes.
day at a time. Thanks, girls.
ladies.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.